start recording. All right, welcome to the YouTube video. Those who are here, we're about to start recording live episode of the podcast about things I learned from Grey's Anatomy. This is going to be so fun. All right. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Liberated Millionaire podcast. I'm so pumped to have you here, and I hope you're still hearing this intro because I just knocked into a cable on my computer that made it shut off. So that was cool, but experimenting with technical difficulties here, and yet we are about to learn some just wonderful, amazing stuff. I'm just going to double check that I'm still live, but it looks like everything's working okay. A little bit of a false start here. That's life. Sometimes it just happens, right? So let's go back. Hello, Facebook. Are we still live? We're still live. All right, awesome. So I'm going to go back and restart because that was a little bit of a false start on the podcast. Sometimes this happens, right? All right, delete. Back to the beginning. All right, guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of the Liberated Millionaire podcast. Pumped to have you here and pumped to talk a little bit about Grey's Anatomy and what I learned from it. So I've been doing this Experts Week on things I'm learning from experts. And I thought, well, what other experts are there? And I thought, well, there are experts in medicine. And I've been watching them every night because I've been watching a couple of episodes of Grey's Anatomy with my wife Preetha every night before we go to bed. And so I've been thinking about this, and let me just move my mic a little closer. I don't know how the audio is on here. I think it's probably fine. And so I've been thinking about this, right? And I have had two just life-changing, massive revelations from watching Grey's Anatomy that just blew my mind. Like, not kidding, like life-changing revelations, both of which inspired by this show. And so the point I'm going to make today is not that you need to watch Grey's Anatomy because it's the best way to learn. The point I'm going to make today is that learning has nothing to do with education. And you need to understand that these are separate things. Education is important in many ways. It gives you information so that you can draw on that. But learning has nothing to do with education. It has nothing to do with a school subject. It has nothing to do with any of these things. And so you've actually been lied to your whole life about what learning is. And I'm going to demonstrate that to you today by showing you what I can learn from a trashy romantic medical drama TV show. Okay? So here we go. Here's what's happening, right? I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, okay? And here's the first revelation. I'll just tell them to you first, right? These are great stories. First revelation is I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, and I always like just paying attention to things, connecting dots. And there's this episode where there's a couple people with really interesting cases. One of these people is a famous violinist, and he's this older violinist, and the heart surgeon on Grey's, Dr. Burke, has installed a pacemaker in him. And he says now that he has this pacemaker inside of him, this electronic thing inside of him, he can't play the violin well because it's like changing the pace of his heart and it feels unnatural. And so he wants the doctor to do a surgery to help him so that he can actually end up being able to play the violin again. So that's one case. And I'm thinking, that's really interesting. The idea that this software or this, thing is interfering with his natural talent. Okay? The second thing that happened on this episode, part of the same revelation, is there's another guy with OCD. And, whenever they put these people with OCD on the TV, I'm not familiar with anyone in person who's had extreme OCD, so I don't know what that's like. But, there's this guy and he has to flick a light switch 52 times in every room, So he's like moving this light switch. And then he goes somewhere and he has to say things like it's clean, 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 clean. And he's saying this stuff over and over again, right? And it just looks so ridiculous, okay? And somehow from watching this violinist who wanted to get his pacemaker removed and this OCD guy who looked really ridiculous. And again, I'm not saying that OCD isn't a real thing. I'm not familiar with that. I'm only saying that I chose to learn something specific from this. I had been thinking for a long time in my own head, all right, separate Woody Rainey thoughts, nothing related to Grey's Anatomy, that there's no reason for us to ever be unhappy or to be mentally upset, right? There's no reason for that. And so every time I'm mentally unhappy or upset, I'm doing something for no reason. Doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect all the time, but it does mean that every time I'm unhappy, I can just be like, I must be just doing something stupid to be unhappy, so I'm sure I can figure it out and become more happy. That's just the way I always think. And watching this OCD guy on Grey's Anatomy, it just made me think, like, why would I, someone who doesn't have that severe disease, why would I choose to be unhappy? And kind of, again, this is a hardline statement, and I don't know enough about this to say it for real, right? So don't take this as like a psychological advice. But for me personally, I felt like that guy with the OCD on TV looked ridiculous doing all this stuff, and yet I do the equivalent of having these negative thoughts in my head and worrying all the time. And so I thought, why would I worry all the time? Why would I choose to worry all the time? Why would I choose to, be upset And I just immediately flipped the switch, and I chose to equate any type of worrying or upsetness in my life as being just as absurd as if I walked into a room and had to flick the light switch up and down 100 times. Or if I had to be told something was clean, clean, clean before I could move on it, right? It's absurd, okay? I'm not saying real people don't have that OCD disease, but it looked absurd to me. And so I chose to compare it to my mental flaws so that then I wouldn't be interested in having those flaws because it just would seem ridiculous, all right? The thing most of us do is we justify our sadness, our upsetness. We justify why we should be upset. The truth is, you're in control of your own mind and your own emotions, so there's not really a reason to be sad or upset. And so that just triggered with me, but only because of Grey's Anatomy, all right? And then somehow that realization paired with this other realization, which was that, things we put in ourselves, artificial things we put in ourselves can really mess up our natural rhythm. And something clicked. And between those two thoughts, I thought, well, if really everything I'm thinking that's sad or frustrated or upset or OCD is just ridiculous and I can just let go of it, why do I need to be on medication? And is it possible that the medication I'm on, Lexapro, disclaimer, 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 I need to put this, right? I love medication. I love the idea of using medication. I used it for 2 years and it was so helpful to me. So don't think this is a knock on medication or telling you to go off of yours. In fact, the opposite. You probably need it. But for me, I'd been on medication for 2 years, and I felt kind of like this Eugene Foote guy, this violinist in Grey's, where he had this pacemaker. It was interfering with his natural rhythm. I felt like at this point, I had control of my anxious thoughts. I was ready to give up my medication, and because all those mental crazy thoughts I used to have before medication, now they would all just seem like ridiculous OCD thoughts like this OCD guy on Grey's, and I just ignore it because it's obviously ridiculous to think negative things. And similarly, I was like, well, this Lexapro, I remember it kind of suppresses my most creative insights. So 3 weeks ago, I talked to my psychiatrist and I said, I'd like to just go off my Lexapro full dose, cold turkey. I'm ready. And we did that. I had terrible side effects for a week and spent a week in bed, just being dizzy and nauseated. But now I'm off the medication. And in addition to being able to control my anxious thoughts, which I can now, which how cool is that? That's amazing, right? It took me years to figure this out. It's amazing, okay? In addition to that, right, I have my natural spark back, that last 15%, 10% of energy, of enthusiasm, of creativity that I bet you can see in me. And it looks kind of like a crazy person. But the truth is that average people are way too muted, way too unhappy, way too robotic. And this is kind of the way I've been meant to live. And it doesn't have any of that negative stuff. And it's not a crazy mania. It's just a general enthusiasm. And I learned that from Grey's Anatomy. How weird is that, right? That an episode where a guy had a thing instilled in his heart that was creating a negative effect for him, plus an OCD guy would come in the same episode, and I would somehow use that to take myself off medication. And the story doesn't end there. Guess what? In addition to the medication, just quelling my last 10% of intellectual creativity, it was also making me a little bit puffy, overweight. Just something about this medication really drove my appetite up, or really made me retain weight or something. And so for the past 2 years, since I've been on medication, I've been struggling with my weight, and I've been dieting and eating such good, not dieting, but just eating a strict, nutritious meal plan, and I couldn't get fit, and I was wondering why. And getting off this medication fixed that for me. How cool is that? And so now I'm starting to get in shape and get ripped and do these workouts, and I'm motivated. And again, getting medication is the best thing I could have ever done. This is not a podcast about medication, right? If you haven't been on it for a couple years and used it and leveraged it to get calm and figure yourself out, you probably need to go talk to a therapist and a psychiatrist and get on medication. You probably need to talk to your doctor, therapist, psychiatrist about that. That's what changed my life initially, and you can go back and listen to my podcast on that, about changing my life through that. But the other wild thing is that now it was the time to go off. And the point I want to make to you is that what just happened right there with Grey's Anatomy, that's what learning is. Learning is not going to class with a textbook and learning about the history of, the 1920s or whatever. You may need to learn a little bit about the Great Depression. Those educational facts may help you just a little bit, but it's never really going to change your life, okay? Education is only good for achieving a social position, meaning if you are more educated, you're more likely to be able to achieve a higher status in society. And so if there's a specific job you want, like a doctor, you got to get that education, right? But education can never make you happy. Education can never make you fulfilled. Education has nothing to do with your personal happiness or your sense of personal achievement. It's just something you need to do on the side, depending on what status in life you want. There are entrepreneurs who have no education, right? And there are, presidents of the United States who have a bunch of law degrees from Yale and Harvard, and they studied at all the best places because they knew that would help them get that social status to become president or to become, chief of something or whatever, right? But real learning comes from interdisciplinarily. That's a kind of complicated word. But real learning comes from taking different sources, combining them so that your action and outlook on life changes. And it doesn't matter whether that's in history class or whether that's watching an episode of Grey's Anatomy. You can have that insight that changes your action, and that's what learning is, okay? Learning is when you change your own chemistry, so therefore to take a different action. And that's what I did. And the action was going off my medication with the help of my psychiatrist, right? And I've got her on speed dial so that if something goes south, I can call her back. But I don't think I'll need it because I'm doing great. And so that's one huge, download from God, right? That's not something I could have thought of on my own. I would have never thought of these things on my own. But what you'll realize is that when you get good at learning, which I think I'm the best at in the world, I just don't see people learning at the level I'm learning at. When you get good at truly learning, you can learn from anything. And so it doesn't matter whether I'm in a Harvard computer science lecture or whether I'm watching Grey's on the couch eating, popcorn. I don't eat popcorn. But whatever I'm doing, I can learn equally from any of those things. And once you learn to learn, then boom, you can learn anywhere, anytime, any place. So that's the first download. But then I had an even crazier download. And it was super cool. And this was a little bit less directly related to Grey's, but the metaphor, I just used it to lock it in. And so again, this is just about using everyday life to lock in this creativity. This is what was happening. I have been thinking for a long time, what if I died tomorrow and I haven't achieved my mission? And simultaneously, what if I'm not doing the right thing because I haven't made everybody on earth happy and enlightened yet? And those may sound like heavy things. Those may sound really intense, right? But the truth is, I just feel that special talent within me. I'm in here, and I know my talent, and I know I can do wonderful things in the world. And so having the experience of being in here, I've been thinking, well, if what I see for the world, if the beauty and passion and love and kindness in the world is really possible that I see, then why is the world so wrong right now? Why are people doing all the wrong things, thinking all the wrong things, being upset, having sad thoughts, fighting with each other? Why are they doing any of that? I can't figure it out. But more than not being able to figure it out, I had constantly worried, what if I'm just not doing my job right to help people? Or what if I die and I haven't helped people yet? Or, what if the world just fundamentally doesn't make sense, right? What if it just doesn't make sense because otherwise people should be happier? And you might be saying, well, how is this going to connect to Grey's Anatomy? Well, one thing about Grey's Anatomy is that all the people on that show that are the main characters start out as interns. Meredith Grey, the main character, she starts out as an intern. And so they all start out as these little interns at this teaching hospital. And every time somebody's injured, they get so excited to get a case. They're so excited to get a medical case. And so they're actually, experiencing joy from the fact that they get to help people who are hurt, right? If the world were a perfect place where nobody was hurt, they wouldn't get to practice medicine. There wouldn't be any need for them, okay? But since people are constantly getting injured and needing help, these surgeons always want to be on the new case, the new injury, so they can learn a new surgery and get better. And somehow, I had this download the other day, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, where I thought, oh my gosh, what if the world wasn't perfect because I'm like the universe's intern or God's intern or however you want to call it, right? What if the best world I could possibly exist in is the world where I get to watch people heal and tangibly help them do it? And I just thought, oh my gosh, because the whole time I'd been thinking my life would just be better if everyone were already happy and they didn't need my help. But now I see that I am blessed, just like these surgical interns are blessed to have the opportunity to learn surgery and mess up a bunch and eventually become surgeons who heal people. I am gifted with this world that's so broken and messed up, where I look out and I just see people fighting for no reason, having conflict for no reason, being upset at each other for no reason, being upset at themselves for no reason. They're not dancing and singing like they should be. They're not happy all the time. They're letting other people take advantage of them. People are doing all this ridiculous stuff. And the truth is, I'm like, God's little intern here to grow and nourish people. And the best thing I can experience on earth is not a perfect earth, but rather a place where every day I get to touch people and heal them and help them see for the first time, right? And just like to a doctor, right? It's great if somebody's healthy, maybe they wish everybody was healthy, but then they'd be out of a job. In the same way, if you were all perfect, if everyone was all already happy, if I didn't have my own problems, I'd be out of a job. There'd be no point to me being here. And so suddenly I found this amazing purpose, because I remember what it was like to wake up and really feel love for myself for the first time a few years ago, to consciously choose I'm worthy of love. And now I see that as my mission, and I'm this little intern going around learning what to do, how to play these messages, how to talk to people, how to encourage people. I'm just God's little intern doing all this. And then as I do it, the moment I see people wake up, the times when I see people really change or really resonate with a message, that's the best feeling I could have on earth. Not the feeling of a perfect earth where everybody's already happy, but the feeling of my impact directly watching someone open their eyes. And somehow this concept of the intern, of the teaching hospital, of learning, right? Just somehow I used Grey's Anatomy, because I've been watching it so much, to leverage that and twist that in my brain so that it really locked in. And so guys, I guess in conclusion, this is what learning is. Learning is using the external world to lock in, to become stronger, to become mentally sure of what you're up to. Learning means taking mental stimuli from the outside world and applying it so that you're happier, healthier, and better. That's what I've been doing, and I can do it with a TV show, I can do it walking outside, I can do it at the mall, I can do it talking to somebody. I can pretty much learn anywhere. And the truth is you can too. It's a unique human capability. The only problem is you think learning has something to do with education, and it has absolutely nothing to do with education, right? Sometimes while receiving an education, you can also learn. But it's kind of like squares and rectangles, where, sure, education is learning, but not all learning has to do with education, right? Like squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares, right? Did I get that metaphor right? We'll see. But my point is, you've been taught education is the only place where you learn. The truth is that learning is the thing that drives human happiness, human innovation, human spirit, and that education can be used as a tool to augment learning, just like many other things can be used as a tool to augment learning. But heck, I can learn from a TV show, guys. And so I just want you to understand that. I want you to understand that you can have these amazing breakthroughs anytime, anywhere. You just have to open your eyes, right? You just have to open your eyes and be open to it, right? I'm constantly living, watching the universe, waiting for the next signal, waiting for the next sign, waiting for the next thing to open my eyes. And that's how I learn so much so fast, right? That's why I'm going to be so successful and so happy and wake so many people up over the course of my life, is because I'm just learning, all right? And so if you want to know how to be happy and successful in life, stop worrying as much about an education and start taking a lot more time to learn. You can learn anywhere, anytime. And it's all about connecting seemingly unrelated things so they make sense in your brain. Guys, that's it for today. I hope you really enjoyed that. And I hope it's a little bit inspiring for you, this idea of, you can learn from anywhere. I can have massive downloads as a result of watching Grey's Anatomy. But I'm not saying I needed to watch Grey's Anatomy to have that download, right? That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I ended up having a download because I am a learner. I am a person who's always learning, always growing, always advancing, and I just happened to be in front of Grey's Anatomy at this time. And I'll give you a little teaser, okay? I'm inventing something. This is like Mental Health 999. This is probably the highest level thing I've talked about yet ever to an outside audience, because I generally keep things on the inside while I'm tinkering and fixing them up. But my first goal to make a real mental health breakthrough for humanity is I'm going to invent what I call the iPhone of human life or human living. Meaning, before there were smartphones, right? There were computers, but even on the computer I'm doing now, I have to go in and log in, and I have to use a mouse and click all these buttons and type, and people used to have to type code into computers, and computers were so complicated. But then, Steve Jobs said, hey, what if I just made this phone and there were 6 buttons and you just clicked it and you could do these things that computers could all do, all these complicated things, but all you had to do was click a button. I'm inventing that for human life. This has always been my vision for years, and I've finally created beta version 0.1. I know I sound like a lunatic right now, but this is true, okay? And I've created a human iPhone where I only have 7 functions, okay? And if I'm not doing one of those 7 functions, then I have to forget and drop it. And one of my 7 functions, okay, is a mental external world channel of what do I do from the external world. The only thing I do mentally as it regards to the outside world is I ask, what can I learn? And so if you want to know what might set me apart or make me different, or if you're looking or listening to me right now and you're like, what is going on with this guy? What's different about him? It's that the only thing I'm doing nowadays, the thing I'm constantly tunnel visioned on mentally, as it relates to the external world, now I've got physical, mental, emotional, internal, and external, so that's 6 buttons plus my consciousness. I'm not teaching you guys all that right now. I'm still developing that. That's in the beta labs. But the point is, in the outside world, all I think mentally is, what can I learn? So if somebody says something mean to me, I don't think, how can I get angry? What can I do to get back at them? I don't think any of those things. I just think, what can I learn? If I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, I'm not thinking, oh, they're so stupid or blah, 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 or blah, blah, blah. I'm just thinking, what can I learn, right? And so, of course, I'm going to learn from Grey's Anatomy. I'm going to learn from hanging out with my family. I'm going to learn from walking down the street. I'm going to learn from eating food. I'm going to learn anywhere. Because the only question I'm asking mentally as it relates to the outside world, the only reason the outside world is here is, what can I learn, right? And so emotionally, I do different outputs to the outside world. Physically, I do different outputs. But mentally, what can I learn is the only question I'm ever asking. And that, by necessity, by having that button, right? By having the button that says, what can I learn? I don't have any other buttons. I don't have a complaining button, so I can't do it, right? I don't have a doubting myself button anymore because it's not on the thing I've created for myself. And so we make life so complicated, but you have to understand, right? The gift of human power, and I know this is super advanced, right? So you might just think I'm a lunatic and you want to send me to Mars, and that's fine, right? But the gift of humanity is our ability to abstract ideas and then leverage them. And so just like Steve Jobs can take a thing which used to be a bunch of zeros and ones and electrical signals, which were then turned into like these old programming languages, right? Like compiler language and Fortran and stuff, which then turned into like C++, which then turned into other programming languages, which then turned into a PC, which then turned into a laptop, which then turned into an iPhone. And finally at the iPhone, the everyday person can use it. Up until then, the everyday person can't really use it. I'm doing the same thing, and I'm here creating things for you so that there are all these complicated mental things, right? And you can go to a therapist, and that's great. And they're going to tell you, do all this complicated cognitive behavioral therapy and whatever. But what I'm creating is a simple human iPhone where you have 7 functions, and you just click on them, and it's that simple, right? And you're not able to do something wrong if you just stick to those buttons, Just like on an iPhone, you can't go and type in custom code that F's it up, right? You can't. You just click a button, call, okay? There's no way to mess that up. In the same way, I promise you, if mentally you just say, I'm here to learn, right? Like, what can I learn? And if you just filter out every other mental thought, you'll be amazed at how fun life is. So I'll teach you some more about these other things. I know this episode was all over the place. It was deep. It was a little bit manic, right? Some of you are probably saying, take this guy to the psychiatrist. There's this Tony Robbins video I love. And he has this video and he's like, society's just brainwashed us all, Because if you go up to somebody and you're like, how was your day? And they're like, sucked. And you're like, why? And they're like, woke up. You're like, oh yeah, gotcha. As if it's just okay to have a bad day. But then he's like, well, what if you walked up to somebody and you're like, how you doing? And they were like, I feel great. I feel awesome. And you're like, why do you feel so great? And he's like, I don't know. I just feel good. Then you'd be like, take that guy to the psychiatrist. And he's like, that's the mental hypnosis that our whole culture has been in. That's like a 1-minute clip from Tony Robbins. I watch it very often because, again, my mind is asking, what can I learn? And what that's teaching me is, I don't know why people choose to be sad. I don't know why society chooses that message. But it doesn't make any sense to me, so I won't live it that way. Anyway, guys, this has been a blast. I've loved this one. I'm going to be bringing the heat, the energy. If you don't know, I'm on Facebook now. I'm live streaming basically my whole life. So in the mornings, I'm streaming a teaching parable, just a little simple teaching parable. And then I'm streaming my own self-therapy where I do the mental work on myself, right? Which is super cool. And then I'm streaming my workouts, And then I'm streaming the podcast. And I'm even going to be streaming lifestyle and video games and stuff like that in the future. I just got to kind of get that part sorted out. And then it's all going to be going up to YouTube on Living Life with Woody Rini. And that's my channel. I think I have the link in the description of this Facebook. I'll leave the link in the description of the podcast, okay? But the YouTube is going to be the archives of everything. I'm about to just start blowing that up, and you're just going to see oodles and oodles of content, okay? Because I've also asked, what can I learn? And one thing I've learned is, with modern data storage technology, I can archive my whole life on the internet for you guys to see and grow from. So if that's something you're into, awesome. If you just popped in for a half second of this, and you're like, forget this, no hard feelings, I love you, I still care about you. Guys, there's a different world out there. And I hope you can see, like, my goal for you is not to have you, like, learn any one specific thought during this podcast, but I want to literally open your heart, right? Again, Grey's Anatomy reference. Like, they have these things, and when they're doing heart surgery, they put people under, and then they open their heart so they can get to it. And so by going on this podcast, I'm hoping to kind of hypnotize you into this state where you're suddenly excited about life. You're suddenly kind of unhypnotized by society and you're more into this positive hypnosis. And then I'm going to rip your heart open and expose your parts that you're scared of, your inner parts, so that you can then heal yourself. All right? So we can heal you together. And so that's my goal always, is to be kind, to be open, to heal you. And just remember, you can learn from anything. It's been awesome, y'all. It's been awesome. I probably should go ahead and jump off for now, but it's been an absolute blast talking to you. All right, podcast is toast. Very nice. Guys, this was super, super fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will join the YouTube channel. I hope you will stick around. And I'm just bringing the heat every day. I'm bringing the heat multiple hours per day, every day. So you better be ready for that. You better be ready for the heat. You better be ready for the excitement and energy and enthusiasm like nothing ever before. It's going to be something truly different from everyday life, and I think y'all are going to love it. So anyway, that concludes this recording. I'll be back tomorrow for more stuff at 9 a.m. Eastern. Looking forward to it. Going to go ahead and stop the stream, stop the recording. Have a good day, guys. Oh, I just clicked